Hello, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are in our 27th season. That's 27 years, or not, I'm not sure. But in all that time, we have heard a lot of arguments for why we should believe in God, why we're crummy for not believing in God, why only intelligent people believe in God. But we haven't heard anything any good. So if you've got the argument and the evidence and you're not a complete jerk, please call in. And let's see where we get. Atheist Experience is about to start. Hello, everyone. Today is April 16th, 2023. I'm your host, Johnny-P. Angel. And joining me today is JMike.
Yo, how you doing, Johnny? It's been forever. I feel like since we've
It's
done
been a long
Talk
time.
Heathen. I feel like
It's back in the Talk Heathen days that we last did a show. So I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Me as well.
Yeah. Are you ready to take some interesting calls from some interesting folks?
I think I am. I believe I am.
Have you made a contact with all of the churches in your area to let them know that tithings will be coming their way? Because the callers today, any one of them, could convince you that sweet Jesus is real, or Muhammad or whatever. Have you done that? Because I haven't.
I haven't thought of it that way, but now I see the connection, and I probably should have, I guess, warned and let them know.
Neither of us
coming into the pot.
Look, you can curb stomp us today, theists. You can catch us unprepared, and maybe you can make a case for why we should contact your church and give all of our money to your church. But anyway, the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Now, last week, and for a few weeks now, we've done a question of the week called Share Your Experience. Last week, we asked you, what's a life hack that God doesn't want you to know about? And we asked for all the dumb answers for that, and we got some. So, number 3, Yahooligan says, life hack God doesn't want you to know about: sin all you want, God will forgive you.
That was the one that came to my mind.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, immediately.
But there's a risk, right? Because if you accidentally get hit by a bus before you ask for forgiveness, right, then I think you're SOL. Number 2, coconut macaroon life hack: add baking soda to holy water. It will clean anything, even criminal records and guilty consciences.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
And number 1, Sarah Glenn says, life hack God doesn't want you to know about: closing your eyes and using your imagination doesn't just work for prayer. Wink, wink. I have no idea. No idea what that could possibly mean.
I'll explain after the show.
All right, after dark. We have a new question this week, and I'm going to ask you, JMike, what that question is and give you an answer, okay? Complete the sentence. It was a real jerk move when God created
urethra
blank.
Fish.
Urethra fish.
The Candiru fish. That's my immediate answer.
Why don't you tell the beautiful people at home what that is?
People can go look for themselves. I will spare a lot of the details, but it's a fish that goes in an area that you don't want it to go, and it's attracted to something that is out of that area.
Yeah.
And so if you want to Google it, you can. I don't really suggest it, but yeah, I think God's a dick for creating that, if that's the case. I don't really see the relevance of that. And anyway,
it's all part of the plan, Mike.
But that's just one member of a set of things I could list for you.
Fair enough. Should I look that up on my work computer?
You might be okay with it. Just maybe not hit images. Just read about it on Wikipedia or something like that. Yeah.
Well, folks at home, if you want to tell us what you think the real jerk move was, go ahead and put it in the comments below and give us your best answer, and we will read it next week. All right. Well, I want to take our first call, and Mike, I want to start with Eric. Eric's coming to us out of Arkansas, and he has an idea of a God that he thinks might be valid. and he wants to hear our opinions. Eric, you're on AXP with JMike and Johnny P. Give it to us.
Hi there. Hi there.
Hello.
Actually, wow, that kind of came out of nowhere. You said my name and I got nervous real fast. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. Not a problem.
So anyways, I've been an atheist for a little while, and I've come to the conclusion that I think Earth is God.
Okay.
So, you still there?
Yeah. What's your definition of a god?
Something that created us. I mean,
So, like my mother and father
yeah.
are a god? They created me.
No, I guess that's not it then.
Okay.
But
how are my parents different from your concept of a god?
I don't know.
Well,
JMike?
Well, yeah, Eric. So it seems like when you're, if you're saying that the Earth is God, I mean, you're taking that as a creator. It just seems that Johnny can take that type of logic to its extreme, and show you that, okay, well, using that logic, then your parents are God, or like ants that create other ants are gods. So I'm not really seeing. I'm kind of confused because, like, presumably you believe that the Earth is late in the process, or at least later in the process of a like cosmological type of expansion, right? There's stuff before the Earth, right?
Yeah. I mean, I believe in the whole Big Bang theory and everything, but I came to this conclusion after learning about abiogenesis.
Well, real quick, Eric.
So
it seems that you're just like, it's like if I'd said that my right foot is moral, I'm just going to rename morality my right foot. Like, that's what it seems like you're doing. You're just taking a label and slapping it on a concept that isn't really tracking what I think most competent speakers of whatever language is talking about God is actually conveying. It seems that what they're conveying is some mind that existed alone and then creates the external world, or multiple entities that exist alongside each other that create an external world. If you're not using that kind of notion, it just seems trivial to me, because I might just agree with you, abiogenesis, or that the Earth exists, but you're just slapping an unneeded label of God. I'm not really seeing the need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric, what does create mean? How was your definition of create?
Well, through natural processes. I mean, I'm not saying that the Earth, wiggled its fingers and everything came into existence, but like we're created from amino acids during abiogenesis from materials from the Earth, and so this is just I'm a huge fan. I mean, I'm coming to this conclusion, and I don't know what to think about it, because
Sure.
we was created from the materials from this Earth. We evolved to meet the Earth's needs. The Earth gives us everything we need to survive, and it's the only satellite in the whole entire universe that we can detect that we can live on. Well,
Okay.
for now.
We satisfy the Earth's needs. Is that what I heard you say? Because what are the Earth's needs? Is the Earth conscious and has needs?
No.
Okay.
But can an unconscious object in space create life?
I think
I don't.
Unconsciously?
Yeah, I don't know, but you said that we satisfy the Earth's needs, and I don't know what you mean by that. What needs does the Earth have?
No. I might have said that wrong. I meant the Earth satisfies our needs.
Okay.
Everything that we need to survive is on the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is strange, because like me and Johnny just won't disagree with you, especially if, say, like me and Johnny are naturalists, and we just think there's nothing but natural causes, and the Earth is among one of those causes. You're just slapping a label and calling it God on something that would be held by a naturalist. It'd be weird. It'd be like me talking about Yahweh and trying to convince the theist that they're really an atheist, right? Like, oh, what I mean by no God is this thing that you believe in. It just seems like a really strange move to me, because you're pointing out something that a naturalist or someone who doesn't think that an agent that created, the world, they could just agree with this. You're just using a grunt being God to label that thing. Mm-hmm. But the referent, right, the word you're using that was referring to it is nothing that a naturalist is going to disagree with you. They're going to just agree with you. It's like if someone believes in objective morality, and we find out what they're talking about is what me and Johnny think about subjective morality, and they're just calling it objective morality. We're kind of like sitting there scratching our heads, like, but now we don't have like a really substantive type of distinction. And so that's why I can't really give much more than that. That's kind of my concerns. It just seems like arbitrary that you're just defining something into existence.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, Eric. And you used some words, and the chat actually mentioned this, and I was thinking this too. I'm not going to, there's no proof that I was, but somebody mentioned it and it reminded me to say it, that you say create. And the word create is a verb. And that
is a creator, yes.
Yeah, but if you don't say create, then you don't necessarily mean that there's a creator. You just kind of jumped over that there's a creator. I still want to know, is the earth conscious? Does the earth have thoughts? Does the earth have goals? Does the earth is the earth an intelligence? Is that what you believe?
No, I do not believe that. I mean, show me its brain and I'll show you its consciousness.
Okay. All right. So just to circle back to where we started from, I don't think there's really much merit in your hypothesis that the earth is God, either linguistically speaking or, I don't know, ontologically speaking. I don't know, Mike, what do you think? Is it just kind of a dead end that doesn't really get us anywhere?
Well, yeah, I mean, like we just asked, you don't think, I mean, you seem like you agreed the earth doesn't have intentional states like desires or beliefs or intentions or hopes or stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't believe that the earth is a living, breathing, thinking being. Yes, I do not.
Yeah, so and so if like we cash that out, it seems like it's kind of causal tendencies, maybe like loosely we can talk about it in that way. And I think what the theist wants is, at least the concept that theists are working with when they say it's a God, is specifically this distinction that it's not merely just kind of these causal tendencies, but there's this real like intentional kind of property, like with intending to bring about a world and desiring for its creatures to love it or slaughter Amalekite children or whatever.
Follow certain rights.
And so there's intentions and there's goals, and those goals can be, we can fail in respect to those or succeed, or it can fail or succeed. And if you divorce yourself from that, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just sounds like you're changing the subject is the way that I'm going to put it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eric,
I think that's what I was doing.
Could be. Eric, are you surrounded by religious people in your life?
Say what?
Are you surrounded by religious people in your life?
Oh, good Lord. Everybody. Everybody is surrounded me.
You're not alone. You're not alone. Are you? Tell me if I'm off. I want
to talk to you guys because.
Okay. Because.
Say what?
You go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I just wanted to. Sorry, there's a delay. I just wanted to call you guys to talk to you because most people that I'm surrounded by on a daily basis believes that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. You know?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And a lot of people out there are like that. So maybe, and I'm just sort of throwing this out there. Do you feel an external pressure to find validity in a God concept, like to find a usefulness to a God concept, and that's why you're saying the Earth is God, because you want to try to find, because they're all using the God concept. Why can't you? Is that part of it?
I think it's more like we should acknowledge that the Earth is very crucial to our survival, and if we put the God concept on it, we'd have a way to think about changing the Earth the way it's going right now, because it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
I think we both know what you mean. Yeah. Sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
No, sorry, I want to keep this brief because I do a lot of talking, but I'm with you on that. Can I suggest that instead of saying Earth is God, how about Earth is home? Right? I don't worship my home, but I try to keep it clean. I don't worship my home, but I don't try to burn it down. I welcome people into my home and I treat my home with some respect because the building might exist, but it might be unlivable for me. And we do treat other people's homes with respect. So maybe if we stop thinking of the earth as just a garbage pit and start thinking of it as a sacred home, a sacred place, a temple, I don't know, maybe that's too much. We'll get to the same point without having to get into the hocus pocus of God concepts. What do you think about that, Eric?
That sounds reasonable.
All right. Any last thoughts, JMike? And we're going to let you go, Eric.
No, I think that was that's a good way to put it, like your home, because it's adding a lot with the God, because the concept that people are working with, or at least what identifying, is kind of divorced, it seems like, from what your reference is. And so that's kind of that's all I would say.
All right. Do appreciate your calling, Eric. Thank you so much. Try that out for size and give us a call back, or if you got something, send us an email at tv@atheist-community.org. See if that bounces around your head for a while and it sounds like it rings true. If you like what we do here at the ACA and you'd like to support us, there's plenty of ways you can do it. Not the least of which is by watching the channel and sharing it with people and talking about these concepts and making a difference in the world. But you can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the join button below this video, and it'll give you access to special chat emojis, and that's fun. And you can send a super chat with a question or a comment, which will be read live on air during the show. JMike, are you seeing the super chat that we have available here? Do you want to read that off to the audience?
Yes, I do. From Greg Markowski, sends in thank you for $4.99. Thanks for the show. Well, you are extremely welcome. We appreciate having an audience because that makes the show possible. So thank you.
Yeah,
we're fans of fans.
Yeah, we're fans of fans. A lot more fun. I'm gonna take a call from Kevin. Now, I don't know if this is my Kevin, but it's a Kevin. I don't think it is. He's calling from Georgia, wants the host to justify support for the trans community. He doesn't have anyone he knows that is supportive and wants to have a little more understanding of why it is important to be supported. Is that what your question is, Kevin? You're on the air with JMike and Johnny P. Flesh that out a little bit, would you?
Hey. Yeah, sure. I'd also want to be brief because I know this is a little off topic. Even though I am a theist, I'm mainly calling because I would consider myself I kind of have a circle full of conservatives. You know, they're very against the LGBTQIA movement. And my thing is I'm not going to say I agree with it. You know, if you put a gun to my head, I would say I disagree. But the biggest thing to me is all I hear is negativity.
Agree with what? With them or with the?
Yeah,
sorry.
Which way?
I would say if you asked me if I supported, like if I agree, what the snippets I see, you know, kind of what they represent and what they're going for, I would say I disagree. But then again, I don't think I've heard the other side. You know what I mean? All I hear is where I'm coming from because I'm surrounded by people that agree with me. So I'm
Kevin,
to just get a different perspective.
Different perspective. All right. Well, let's start where you're at. What do you think that members of the LGBT community are, as you say, going for? What are they going for? What do you think they're going for?
Okay. So if I get this wrong, please stop me. But
I will. Don't worry.
I hear a lot one of the things I hear a lot all the time is when they talk about gender dysmorphia. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Gender dysmorphia? Okay, yeah. What about it?
Kind of like okay. So I'm of the perspective that if you don't have a way of pretty much proving that somebody is going through that, or if you gave me a vocabulary saying that this is what this is, and if I felt a certain way, then I would probably cling on to it. Short example, my wife was a tomboy growing up,
Yeah.
and she's a girly girl when she's around masculine men. But when she's around, the typical lady, she likes sports, she drinks beer, she eats wings, she does all that, I guess you consider stereotypical masculine traits. But I feel like if she was 8 years old today and somebody told her you're probably suffering from body dysmorphia, you might be a boy, she could pick that up and run with it. So I'm trying to figure out, how do we know this isn't just more of a psychological decision versus, no, this is a real thing, and here's why attention should be brought to it.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this much. Your wife, who I assume identifies as a female woman person, likes stereotypically boy things, whatever that even means, according to some traditional notions, right? Would you agree that your wife is not a transgender person?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So how do you know that she's not transgender?
You mean that she's not like a guy?
Yeah. How do you know that she doesn't identify as a man?
I'm trying to be as respectful as possible, but I guess the things off the top of my head is I would say her genitalia has a lot to do with that, because if her genitalia was different, she wouldn't. So I guess I would start there. If she did not have what she has, maybe she would identify as a man. I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna suggest that the reason why she doesn't identify as a man is because she hasn't identified as a man, and that you believe her, right?
Okay.
That she has expressed that she identifies as a woman, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do I identify? Me personally.
I have no idea. I've never asked you.
I identify as a man. Seems quite natural to me. Why, if I told you that I identified as a woman, would that qualify in your book as being that I would be transgender? Would you just believe me?
Seeing as I guess I would, because I've seen you live a few times, and you seem to look like a man. At the same time, I don't know your genitalia, so I don't know.
Oh, I'm not talking about my sex. I'm talking about my gender. What's the difference between sex and gender? Do you know?
And honestly, that's where I get confused, because I hear a lot that they're two different things, and I'm gonna be honest with you and tell you, I would be okay with that. I really don't need to be convinced that gender and sex are two different things. Although I hear otherwise a lot, that part I don't really care about, to be honest.
You don't.
No.
Well, why do you suppose there's two different words? Is that just a fluke of linguistics? Why are there two different words for what might be the same thing? Sex and gender, in your mind, that's the same thing, right?
Okay, so I would say sex would be what's under my pants right now.
Okay.
I would think that I would be correct. And, gender, all my life, male and female is all I heard. But what's being brought to the table now is that is fluid. The only thing is that I don't have an argument. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, Kevin, have you ever noticed like how these like roles or gender roles change? Or like if you dug somebody up and they had, I don't know, we had evidence that, or say they have a necklace or certain type of jewelry, right? You're not going to know from right then or there, because this idea is going to be something loosely like somebody can have some threshold of characteristics that fit a societal norm of femininity or masculinity. And meeting that threshold is what it means for that person to affirm that gender. Right? That could be a loose kind of view. I don't want to speak for how I guess everybody would want to define it. But when you have that view, you have a direct distinction from that of like your gametes or your chromosomes or your reproductive organs, right? And so long as you kind of agree that you know, if I walk outside right now wearing things that women wear, that if there's kind of like this, you know, people look at you a certain way, or when you express yourself, you're expressing yourself in society a very specific way, and you're expressing yourself that, look, I do meet this threshold of characteristics. I consider myself masculine or feminine, and so I express myself as this role, or this expression of gender, and that's to be completely divorced from the gametes that you have. Does that make sense to you? Hopefully, I did a decent job.
No, JMike, that makes perfect sense. Because I was just about to interrupt you and say, which is why you would identify as a man or a woman. I follow that. And okay. I told you guys that I definitely wanted to keep this. Yeah. I appreciate that, by the way. Believe it or not, I really did pick something up there.
Well, let me last question. Please thank you. I just only want to interrupt you to thank you for treating this very well, despite the fact that you're potentially on the opposition side of it that you've expressed. I really, because like these conversations are way more fun to get through and to try to educate people on than having like a spitting kind of back and forth. It feels like we can actually make some progress. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, you got a last question there.
Sure,
go for it.
Yes. Yeah. The last thing I want to ask, and again, because I know you guys talk to a lot of people, the question may come off as facetious, but it's not. Okay. I'm assuming because you've had people on the show that are transgender, maybe you have friends, people in your community, I don't know, but I'm going to assume so. If I asked anybody in the trans community, what does the LGBTQIA, what do they want? What is the goal?
Good question.
I don't want to hear Ben Shapiro bring it up. You know, like I don't want to hear what my side of people have to say. What would they tell me? What is the goal?
All right. That's a great question. And you said we have callers, we have hosts, we have friends, and yeah, we do. Do you have any friends who are in the LGBTQ community that you know of?
I don't even know anybody that is in the LGBTQ community, let alone a friend.
So I'm going to tell you, Kevin, I'm going to tell you something. Probably the reason why you are uncertain, probably the reason why you listen to your conservative friends and are kind of sitting on the fence, it sounds like, is because you're not exposed to human beings who belong to that community. Once you realize that a trans person or a gay person or non-binary person, whatever it might be, bisexual, pan, all these different categories of humans, right? Once you realize that those categories of humans have humans in those categories, and you speak to one of those humans and you ask them what do they want, they want kind of the same thing that you want. They want to live their life in peace. They want to be financially and emotionally and socially comfortable and have fun, and they want to create things that have a lasting, impact upon their world. In some cases, in some parts of the world, they just don't want to be oppressed. They don't want the force of law coming down on them.
They want to live like all of the rest of us.
And it might not seem like it to you. Maybe you're not aware of it, but maybe if you talk to more folks in that community, you'd find out the subtle ways that society, places like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, other places around the country, and in other countries really, are really taking a big dump on these people, trying to break them. They can't get the gays anymore. The gays have, de facto won the social war. But there's still people who are undecided about transgender people. I don't know how, but there's a lot of questions that they're asking that I think are dog whistles for transgender people aren't deserving of rights. And they have crafty ways of doing it. Well, I'll tell you, they made the same kind of arguments for gay people. They made the same kind of arguments for Black people, for Asian people, for women, for Irish people. Depending on your time period, they made those same kind of arguments with those same subtle distinctions. And so rather than asking two, and I don't know about Mike, but rather than ask two cis white guys, I don't want to speak for you, Mike. I don't know. Not in fact me, but I don't know about what the LGBTQ folk want. Why don't you find some? Reach out. And before you do that, because you don't want to inundate those folks with level 101 questions. Read some stuff on it, and you hit it right on the head, Kevin. You don't want to hear what Ben Shapiro has to say. Ben Shapiro can sit on attack for all of time. He has no informed opinions. He just wants to win the argument. At least that's how I see it. There's a book. It's a little bit, some would call it too radical. Some would say it's not radical enough. But Judith Butler's Gender Trouble laid things out. I'm not saying that it's the gospel truth. I'm not saying it's easy to read. I would argue it's really hard to read. But it shed light on my thought process of how I think about gender, how I think about gender categories. And it almost makes predictions about what we're seeing in the world today. It's not an easy read, and it's not the end-all be-all of gender studies, but it was very informative to me, and it helped me formulate questions that I could ask my friends who are non-binary and transgender that weren't just maybe the questions that you're asking and the questions that your friends are asking. Give it a look-see, find some other stuff, and then find some people and just see their common humanity. And it's the tricky thing about making friends with people is you start seeing life through their eyes a little bit, you know? So that's my thought. JMike, last thoughts?
No, I want to at least commend you, Kevin, for calling in the Ben Shapiro comment kind of made me feel at least confident that you are trying to look at this from an unbiased perspective or remove bias. And I think that's awesome because that's the right step. The truth of these things don't have any fear of investigation. And so I'm not worried about the inquiry you have because I think I hope it'll yield the results that it did for me and Johnny as well in terms of because it's not just something you just, I mean, it's a curve of trying to understand because you might not have the resources and hence why you're calling. And so I commend that because, we want, at the end of the day, people just want to live like everybody else who seemingly has more privileged rights than themselves. And if we can just make this kind of clean for everybody, I honestly think at the end of the day, we all want that. I think there's common ground there, hopefully, that could be made. Trans people just want to live. Want to live their life. They don't want to be oppressed.
That's right. We're going to let you go, Kevin. Thank you so much for calling. You're on the beginning of a journey, and I hope that you keep on pressing forward. Don't be satisfied with one book, with one perspective. Look around, balance them out. And let me say something real quick before we move on to our next little segment. Why do we always talk about atheism plus, right? What does this have to do with atheism? I just tuned into this show so I can see a bunch of brainiacs or anti-brainiacs dunk on those stupid Christians. Well, I'll tell you, the reason why we talk about this stuff is because we are a humanist group as well. JMike and I are humanists. We care about human causes, human experience. And atheism plus, which is a dirty word for some malcontents out there, realizes that the totality of the humanist experience involves people who aren't just angry white men who are tired hearing about preachers grifting the sheeple in the world. That when you get rid of 3,000, 5,000-year-old mythological thought, you open yourself up to what we've discovered over the last 5,000 years about humanity. When you get out of your own cultural myopic blinders, you realize that there are cultures that have third genders. You realize that there are individuals who aren't in that restrictive paradigm of males do this and females do that, and there is no other category except for sinners. Once you keep on opening yourself up to the humanist experience, you realize that there's a hell of a lot more out there, and that's why we talk about it. And I would tell you that there will be atheist bigots, and we will deal with them here on the show and in the world that we live in. But until that time, this is a topic of conversation. So with that said, we have a channel that houses all of the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. Visit tiny.cc/AEN podcast. There you can listen to all the latest shows from the Atheist Experience, Talk Heathen, Truth Wanted, the flagship show, the Nonprofits, and others on one channel. Support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/Patreon AXAP. We've got a call here. I want to take a call from Jamar. Since we're on the topic of transgender issues. Yeah, Jamar, you're on the line with JMike and Johnny, and you have insight for transgenderism and atheist stance on it. Give me your insight, because I just went on a little soapbox. I like to hear what your thoughts are about what I just said.
Well, my thoughts when it comes to the whole, I'm not sure if this is a current word now, transgenderism. I'm not sure. I'm just going off, what I hear in the atmosphere as far as transgender and transgenderism, cis, the current words used today.
Okay.
My personal stance when it comes to this subject is that I feel that transgender is, like it's always been something that people have, like it's always been around. I think now it's been more of an uptick lately as far as this kind of stuff. But there's always been drag queens. There's always been people who've dressed up as the opposite sex. Now, in the current day and age, we have surgery to where people can move further beyond that if they choose to. Now, my thing is, when it comes to this whole narrative, it seems like there's more of a push towards, saying, for example, when it comes to the supposed right-wing conservative, they say, well, what's a woman? And then to the supposed left-wing / liberal side, they say, well, trans women are women. Sure. I feel like a lot of this kind of stuff, I feel like when it comes to the whole transgenderism, I guess, of today, it's more of a heavy lean to trans women are women as opposed to trans women are women. I mean, trans women are trans women. And, that's my personal stance when it comes to that. I think gender, as I understand this, as far as the current atmosphere, gender is more of how you behave, and sex is what you were born as. I'm guessing that's exactly how people are using it today. And I was checking out Andrew Sullivan. He's a gay man who's effeminate. And I was watching him on Bill Maher. He said that, there's a stark contrast between him and his brother, but he heard something when he was younger that said, that, well, from one of his aunt, she said that, well, now you have a real boy, referring to his brother. And he says that, that's something that affects the mind of a kid when it comes to the whole trans stuff, because they feel as though they can't be an effeminate man, they must be a trans woman. And I feel like a lot of this atmosphere is just stirring confusion. I feel like people who are trans people would just be an effeminate version or a stud-style masculine version and still be gay rather than be trans if it wasn't something that was so mainstream to the point of saying, okay, this is who you are, or you were born in the wrong body.
Well, I'll tell you, Jamar, I know that's probably a lot of, I don't know if you have a lot of connections with people in the transgender community, individuals who are transgender or whatever it might be. I'm not going to belabor this point for too much longer. I appreciate your call, but I would say this. It's not for me or you, unless you're transgender, to say what the experience of another, if it's real or not, or that it reflects their individual identity, their own gender expression or not. I can tell you that, tomboys and effeminate men are one thing, and then trans men, trans women are another. It's not for me to call balls and strikes on that one. I think that a person who is transgender and who has that experience and has that identity and has probably worked with it for their entire lives probably knows a heck of a lot more, and it's not really going to add anything to their experience, their knowledge, their reality. If Johnny-P. Angel asserts an opinion about it, I don't know if Jamar, I don't know if it's going to add anything if you do either, but I can tell you that when somebody tells you something about their own internal experience, you kind of have to listen to them. Now, if they're saying that I'm transgender because, I don't know, an angel showed up or an alien showed up, you can argue the source of what made them that, whether it's societally generated, chemically, evolutionarily derived or what have you. But are you going to deny that they have the experience? Are you going to deny the reality of it? I don't know. I wouldn't.
I'm sorry, but my question is that, well, from the quote unquote right slash conservative side, they usually take the same position as, you know, the what you would take as it pertains to, you know, them talking about their beliefs. So they feel this or they feel that. This is your personal experience, but it's not rooted in reality. That's their position when it comes to that. That's why they don't accept that. And I'm not saying that they should have their will imposed on other people, but I'm just saying from the standpoint of just, you know, the whole, you know, narrative itself, how come atheists don't take that kind of position when it comes to, you know, narratives such as trans women are women?
We've had this conversation on this show before. Many hosts have covered this topic. There's a difference. The theist, no, it's okay. And I'm gonna sort of give you a roundup of it. The theist tells you that they have an experience of God and that they're making an external claim about reality outside of themselves, about the nature of reality. The transgender person is telling you about their internal reality. And furthermore, if sex and gender are two different concepts, and I really do believe they are, because it makes sense that they are if you think about it for 5 seconds.
Your biology textbooks even make a distinction on this.
Yeah, and advanced scientific understanding of sex and gender rather than elementary school understandings of sex and gender. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But they're telling it's good. They're telling you something about their personal state of existence. And they're telling you about their expression, their what makes them comfortable, their form of. Now you can deny, you can call them all deranged, you can say that they're all mentally ill or that they are victims of a toxic culture. And I agree that we are all victims of a toxic culture in some form or another. But the difference is that the transgender person, the LGBT person, of generally speaking, and even the cis het straight person is telling you, they're reporting to you what it's like to be them, right? Not what it's like, you know, at the beginning of time or what it's like in other dimensions. Yeah. They're actually telling you about their personal experience, and that's the difference. So, Mike, last thought?
Yeah, well, you said the one thing I wanted to chime in, you picked it up, so I don't want to waste the rest of the callers' times by rehashing it. But yeah, there's a big distinction on this kind of having this belief. You have an attitude towards something that you think is true, right? And that God exists. And you're talking about some external factor, how the way the world works or mechanisms. So it's not going to be analogous in the case it seems that you want to derive, because we're talking about a qualitative experience or what somebody what their own makeup is, or their biology, or their internal psychological states, right? All of these things don't seem to be analogous in the way that the example is hoping to make it, at least from my perspective.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for calling, Jamar. You take care. Hey, like the last caller, talk to some people who are actually experiencing this firsthand. Read some books, Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, other books that are more modern than that, obviously. And, keep on exploring, keep on asking those questions. I think that society is trying to find a new equilibrium now that folks in the LGBTQ community aren't actively worried 24 hours a day about being murdered for who they are. I mean, there are still laws and individuals who would do that, but it's a little different. They've had some breathing room and they want to express themselves, and they're tired of the shit. Pardon my language. I want to talk to, and with that said, I'm not taking any more calls about transgender or LGBTQ issues right now. Not for now. If I see a good one in the queue, I will take it, but that's a topic better handled by I think a transgender host who is up on all of the science and the experience. I'm tired of talking about it today. All right. I think it's important. I think it does tie into the atheist experience, the humanist experience. But I think I've tapped out on what I can really say. With that said, I want to talk to Rodney. Rodney's a guy out of Michigan who wants to talk about how it's not very smart to be an atheist. I like that. Yep. Rodney.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Give it to me, Rodney.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to bring up a point that if you're an atheist and you made the decision to be an atheist, then if you die and God is really true, then you guys have a very big problem.
Oof.
Okay. Which God?
Which God?
If you're
Which God? Because
well,
you're betting.
I'm a Christian.
Great. So great. If it turns out to be Vishnu, you're in some serious shit, aren't you?
Allah's not going to
Not
take
really, because-
kindly.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're not going to go to Jahannam? Allah's not going to send you to Jahannam?
Well, I mean, I'm dealing with what's probably the highest probability of being right.
But that's just assuming your position to be
I
true.
think-
That's very look,
Christianity-
Rodney, stop. That's very uninteresting to me when you're just going to tell me like, well, it's more probable. Of course you believe that because you think it's true, right? But the other people are going to say the same thing about their view to you, saying that Allah, right? You bet against the law, you lost, you're going to have hot coals shoved in your mouth in Jahannam. That's the way that's going to work out. Now, this is even worse than that, right? What if there's a God, Rodney? What if there's a God out there who set up all of these religions, made the course of the way the world is for these reasons, and he goes, this is a test, similar to your view of it being a test. He goes, I'm going to set up all these religions, and all the people that believe in this nonsense, I'm going to punish them because I want the people in the afterlife to be critical thinkers. So this is my test of kind of like using a filter to strain out all the bad ones or all the non-critical thinkers, right? And so now they're left with the atheists or agnostics or agnostic atheists and all the religious people that are holding in that bought it, that, you know, put a chip in for God. They're going to be punished. I mean, you're betting against that concept of a God. You're taking it for granted that the thing in your head somehow is more reasonable than the thing I'm saying, or someone in the or the faith of Islam, right? So this argument just doesn't work. You're just trying to use Pascal's wager, and it's a really bad argument.
Yeah, Rodney, Pascal's wager is a joke, and look into it. Look into the arguments against Pascal's wager. I think that once you realize how crappy of a reasoning tool it is, you'll be kind of embarrassed to continue to use it. Do you have any other reason why it's not smart to be an atheist?
Well,
or if you have an objection to what I said, feel free.
let me bring up objection to what he said real quick. I'll answer that in 2 points. No, the first point is, if you're an atheist and you die, whether what religion is true, you're still going to be punished in the afterlife. So,
no, I just gave you you a God hypothesis where I'm going to be rewarded. I specifically have a God, right, that I don't believe exists, and I get rewarded for that because he's not going to put evidence of himself or herself or itself out there, right? It's not going to do that. It's going to put all the evidence out there it's going to put all the other religions out there. People that buy into that follow those trails are going to be punished. I'm not going to be punished.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're betting against that God. So what we should do, rather than doing this whole betting thing, because this is just nonsense to me, you should just provide me reasons, right? Justification that the proposition, the Christian God exists. So why don't we start with you giving me evidence, not some like, oh, you're going to lose a bet. Okay, well, show me a reason why I should feel even worried about placing that bet, right?
Rodney, just put the script to the side. Put the script to the side and let's just talk.
Yeah, so what's the justification?
Okay.
What raises, since you're about probability and it's the most probable, what is it, like in virtue of what do you use to raise the probability that the Christian God exists? What is that?
I think it deals with Jesus. I think that if you can come to grips with it, that there is enough historical evidence that Jesus really did exist, he really did do the things he said he did, and he resurrected, then we can start from there. And I believe that there is enough evidence.
Yeah, but you're just, all you told me was that some book says a thing about Jesus, and I already know that that's what you believe, right? You think Christianity is true. So presumably you're going to think this book said things about Jesus and I believe that they're true, but that's not evidence, right? You're just repeating the claims of what Christianity is saying. So it's not like really interesting to me to hear the claim repeated back to me. Why should we believe those claims, right?
You talked about historical evidence.
It's just not.
What is it?
It's just not the book says. It's just not the book says a thing. It's when you
Of
look
course
at
it is.
it, like
You told me
the
you've only
general
told me the stuff that the
historical evidence.
gospel says. You have to show me independent reasons
Yeah,
to
show me
accept
something.
it.
Give us something else. We're getting kind of bogged down here, but outside of the Bible, which is the book that tells you how to be a Christian, you would assume that if you are a Christian, you would believe everything it says. What about outside the Bible? Where's the evidence for Jesus? Not just Jesus as a historical person, but the Jesus that walked on water, loaves and fishes, died and resurrected. Where's the evidence of that outside the Bible? Where is it?
Well, outside the Bible, you have like some Roman historians and Jewish historians that verify the fact that Jesus was there. He said he was a miracle performer.
Okay.
And you have Roman history that talks about it. You have a lot of the Roman historians of the time writing about Jesus, saying that these people are claiming that Jesus rose from the dead and they're worshiping as a god. It's written in Roman history. So,
Yeah,
all you have to do is study Roman history.
Let's just grant it though, Rodney. Let's just grant it. Like I that's fine. I'm happy to accept that there was an apocalyptic preacher, Jesus, and they existed. But the things that scholars agree on are very few things, right? So that he existed, that he was baptized by John the Baptist. I mean, that's contested in some cases. That he was crucified, and that he was betrayed by one of his disciples, being Judas Iscariot. Now, that's kind of like what you got. Now, I just will I'll accept that. That's fine. But you know what Josephus also wrote about? He wrote about Theudas and the Egyptian, who were also apocalyptic preachers. And so my view, very specifically, is that Jesus existed. But he existed. He had a very specific prophecy. If you go look at the earliest gospel, being Mark, and you look at Mark 9:1 or Mark 13:30, you get very specific prophecies. Truly, I tell you, some of you standing here will not taste death before you see the kingdom of God come with power, right? Now, if you look at the actual context in history during the period before the last book of the Jewish Bible and the first books of the New Testament being the Pauline epistles, if you look in that time period, apocalyptic preachers, really big thing. It was really popular thing. And what this is doing is it's reconciling the fact that Jews at this time have been oppressed by the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Ptolemies, the Seleucid kings. They've just been getting their ass kicked over and over again. And they have to reconcile this idea that, well, we're supposed to be God's chosen people, but we're not getting our independence as God's people. And so what ends up happening is you have an apocalyptic preacher telling you that the kingdom of God will come. It'll take the powers out of evil and restore God's kingdom on earth. But you know what happened to that message? It didn't take place. It didn't happen, right? The kingdom of God wasn't established on earth. And so when we get to the writers of Luke and John, they changed that. The kingdom of God becomes a spiritual thing. And in John, it becomes just accepting Jesus. Now, that's completely divorced from what Jesus specifically says. So I'll just grant you that Jesus existed. He's a failed apocalypticist and Christianity is false. And the only way that me and you are going to settle our differences is if we do a historical critical analysis. Just telling me that a book says a thing isn't going to do anything for me because I am so invested on the independent evidence and the independent attestation. So can you combat my position on Jesus, or all you have is just a book says a thing and he rose from the dead and we should just take the red lettering out of the text and take it as gospel?
Well, I just told you that I believe in more than just a book says a thing. I've already said that if you look at the historical evidence outside of the book, there's enough historical evidence to come to the conclusion that Jesus was real and that he resurrected.
No. Historians, real quick, Johnny. So this bothers me. Historians do not appeal to supernatural events, right, to explain data. That's why when you look in the past, you won't see, the ghost was responsible for knocking over the vase. It's not a historical method. What that is to start doing pseudoscience, right? It's not actually a historical method at which historians use. They use a very specific criteria when doing history. And one of the things that they don't appeal to is supernatural events. One, because they don't have any data to appeal to for us to do that. If we did, maybe we would. We don't have that, unfortunately. Two, history's method, it's what's called an abductive method. It's dealing with probabilities. What is most likely the case? What's most probably happened in history? Now, the problem with that is that when we're talking about what's most likely probable And what you want to say is most likely probable about the historical Jesus is that a miracle event happened, like he rose from the dead, something that by definition isn't a likely event to occur, then what it ends up turning out is that you're saying the most likely thing that happened is the most improbable event that could have happened, right? That it necessarily lays outside of the scope of history, because history is talking about what's most likely probable, and your thing by definition is like exponentially improbable, right? It only happens one time out of how many ever billion people that have ever existed. And so you can't appeal to a resurrection as historical. That takes faith. You just have to say, look, a book says a thing, and I'm really confident that the book says a thing is right. So I'm going to flat out deny that it's historical. You can use that for the historicity of Jesus, but there's a cost of that, because Jesus isn't your Sunday school gospel, what you read in the red lettering. You have to apply criteria, like the criterion of dissimilarity. We have to know whether or not this is something that Jesus is likely to say, given the context of the time period, or given the context of stuff that Christians are likely to make up about him. I know that's long-winded, but if you're going to go through the historical analysis, I'm very quick to jump on that, because I'm extremely invested in this, and I get kind of pissy when people want to use the resurrection as historical or talk about Jesus being historical when they don't realize it's not the guy that you're reading in your text, right? So we have a decent understanding that he's a failed apocalypticist given the earliest texts that we have.
I mean, I understand your point. It's just, I just feel there's enough evidence to show that Jesus is who he says he is, and he resurrected. Like
Rodney, facts don't care about your feelings.
I gave you evidence outside the book.
What's the evidence outside the book that Jesus actually performed miraculous acts? What you have is evidence that there was reports of it by people who believed he did it. You have no third-party independent verification that these things actually took place.
Yes, you do. Yes,
what?
You do.
Give us an example.
You have many ancient Roman historians that documented this in their writings in the Roman Empire. I can't remember all the names. There's
Tacitus, Josephus. Yes, but look, that's you're not saying anything that's look. You appeal to that thing. I can appeal to the same thing that leads to the conclusion that Jesus most likely failed. Mark 9:1, Mark 13:30, his apocalyptic message failed. The kingdom of God was not established, right? And that's consistent with me appealing to Josephus and Tacitus for that, right? Because it gives me the ground for historical Jesus. And it also gives me more ground because Josephus wrote about, you need to look up Theudas and the Egyptian and read about them, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
It's like Bullfinch's mythology.
Because it fits what I'm saying about apocalyptic preachers at that time, right? Galilean apocalyptic preachers coming up to you saying, repent now, the kingdom is before you, right? For his first words in Mark, the first thing he says, it's very clear that what he's saying is that there's an imminent apocalypse coming, right? This isn't something that he's talking to people 2,000 years later. He's talking to people. Okay, so then combat what I said with just not by saying, oh, well, there's Josephus, oh, there's Tacitus. Tell me independently, right? Because you're just saying, oh, there's these things. Yeah, I'm using those things, but it doesn't. Let me ask you this way. Are you familiar with like the criterion of dissimilarity, the criterion of multiple attestation, the criterion of contextual credibility? Are you familiar with any of those? And just be honest with me.
No.
Yeah, so then don't tell me you have some historical analysis when you don't even know the methodology that's used. Right? I can't take you seriously because I've invested so many hours into this. And so it's like very unfair to me and other people that invest their time into this for you just to stroll up, call in and say, oh, well, Jesus book says a thing and I have historical evidence and I can't remember his name, but Tacitus, right? It doesn't sound very convincing.
Rodney, the fact is that there were individuals who reported what other people. Rodney, hold. There's a delay. I'm just going to go ahead and mute you, and then I promise I'll let you talk because JMike and I have been kind of dominating this. But there are other people in ancient times going forward who are reporting what some other people said, and what some of those other people said were miraculous claims about something that took place. What you don't have is third-party verification that those things themselves actually took place. They're just reporting the stories. JMike has given you a pinpoint example of that when it comes to an Egyptian figure in history. Okay? The fact that somebody talked about it, like I could talk about, this is stupid. The fact that I could talk about something that happened in a Spider-Man comic does not mean that the events depicted in that Spider-Man comic took place. Okay? What you need is someone that could independently verify that those miraculous events actually took place, not just that somebody was talking about it. Okay? So go ahead, and I'll shut up.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, we physically can't go back 2,000 years, so we don't really have that.
That's no. What I'm saying is that we have to use the method to raise the probability, right? And so you don't have that thing. I have something, right? I have I could talk for 3 hours about why Jesus is likely to be a failed apocalypticist. Now, I mean, I'm not like, I don't think that the evidence for historical Jesus is like amazing, like a lot of people want to put it out. But if I lean towards a position and I say Jesus existed, this is what's most likely probable, and I can give you that dialectic. I can talk to you about that, show you my reasons. But you just keep saying like, well, it's really probable because of history, but you're not actually, you haven't even given me a critical method that's used, right? Oh, well, that's independently attested here or multiple attestation here. You haven't done any of that. You're just telling me that that's what you believe.
Rodney, what is thy response?
I mean, I've historical evidence. I don't know what else I can give you. Like, I can't go there. We can't go there and just verify it. So all we have to fall on.
I know, but Rodney, you're not understanding that the thing you appealed to is consistent with my. So we have to just clean this up real quick. You have a view on Jesus. I have a view on Jesus. We both think historical Jesus existed for the sake of the argument, right? Yay, Jesus existed. But the things that we both appeal to, them. It's underdetermined. What I mean by that is it doesn't determine one or the other. We need to do more work. So I went ahead and did more of that work, looked at what the scholars say. And someone like Albert Schweitzer, who put this forth, I think it's like 1906, it's like the first person that put this forth. This has become the dominant view by critical scholars. Paula Fredrickson, Dr. Mark Goodacre, Dr. Bart Ehrman, right? This is a very common view. There's reasons that they use or justification that they use that raises the probability of that being the case. The way they do that is they employ specific historical criteria. If you're not going to offer anything like that, I've taken off on the race and you're just sitting at the starting line. You haven't even moved an inch.
I'll give you
so
one.
You're going to have to go.
What do you got, Rodney?
I'm not going. I don't think it's going to be forthcoming.
It might not. I don't know. Like I could give you one thing. I don't even know if it falls in the lines of what you're saying, but I would argue that if Jesus did really resurrect and he did all the things he said he did, then the history following would not have unfolded the way it did, because you have an explosion of Christianity in the Roman Empire.
That's irrelevant. That's an appeal to a
lie.
No.
That's an appeal to popularity. Like, I don't care about the amount of people that believe that it's true. Like, that's dumb. I could come up with some moral theory, and then in the future, a bunch of people think it's true. It doesn't mean that like it's true because a bunch of people believed it. That's
and I would add to that, Rodney, that you're looking back, you're counting the hits and ignoring the misses. A lot of apocalyptic preachers made claims about the past, and their goofball religions didn't kick off. It didn't go anywhere. This one was a success story.
And notice that, Johnny, that's a great point, because notice that what we know empirically, Rodney, what we know empirically is that when people are wrong about their predictions, right, when we know that they're wrong, what they do is they try to reconcile it, right? They try to interpret it differently. Guess what happens in the case that I'm saying? The kingdom of God, which is very important in the gospel, gets reinterpreted. It's not a literal thing anymore.
Your interpretation is wrong, though.
Yeah, Rodney, that's, you can have that, but you're gonna.
Interpretation's wrong.
Look, you can have that opinion, but you're gonna have to give me more than just telling me it's wrong. I am not like pressed by that response. I'd be pressed if you showed me right a better view given a critical analysis. So I'm just gonna ask you this way: do you care about whether or not the text that you read is true? Do you care about that?
Of course.
Great. Do you think that we should apply a critical analysis or should we apply just not a critical analysis? Which one?
You can apply critical analysis. I do it all the time.
It would be a good thing to do, and we should employ a type of methodology to do so, right?
I mean,
Right. Yeah, we should know what we're doing, have a method, know that it's test it, make sure it works. Great. Now, the thing that I offered to you about history, you had this hubris that you think there's a historical case. You didn't even know what the criteria was that's being used. How can someone like me or Johnny take you seriously on your opinion? Like, how is that? Why would I ever think that you're going to offer me something in this call when you didn't even know, like, History 101, or at least a New Testament scholarship 101?
Because you can look at things in history and you can study and you can come up to conclusions. I mean, you don't have to have an actual method.
Oh, you can just kind of wing it. You have made some suggestion that doesn't really support your argument, Rodney. That last statement makes you look really bad, and I think you're smarter than that. And I think
Not
maybe
really.
you're a little nervous. But the very fact that it was a popular, successful religious movement is not evidence that any of the claims are true, unless you're willing to also acknowledge that the Buddha and all of the claims that the Buddha made were true, that Zarathustra is true, that Muhammad is plugged into Allah's brain, and that all of these religious deities and all that stuff exists. That's a crap argument. And I think if you really thought about it for a little bit longer, you'd realize that you're just making a special case for your own pet religion. But we've talked a lot today. Why don't you go ahead and look up some of the things that JMike has suggested you look into? Mike, any last thoughts, or are you good with leaving Rodney to go do his homework?
I mean, I would urge that if you come into a conversation to say that it's historical, that you know the person you're citing, their name, for one. Two, what they say. Because I'm convinced if I asked you what is it that Tacitus or Josephus says, I'm not even convinced that you're gonna deliver that task successfully, right?
Yeah.
So I would say before you call up a show or maybe and I'm not saying I know a lot, right? Because I'm not a scholar or anything like that. I just am interested in this. If I listen to enough stuff or poke around enough to get a grasp at it, that if on my surface level, if someone's trying to tell me that they have this confidence in their historical analysis, but they're like not even at the surface level, I think I'm rational in believing that they don't know what they're talking about or haven't actually come to that conclusion rationally. Yeah,
I let Rodney go, and I do appreciate your call. Let's go back into the super chats right now. JMike, would you mind doing us the favor and reading those super chats that we've got here?
Yeah. I see one from Randy. Wow, $50. Thank you so much, Randy. That's a huge donation. Appreciate that. I admire your fortitude to confront these topics publicly week after week. It has to be mentally taxing. The irony of saying that at this moment. Thank you for your... Yeah. So anyway, sorry. I want to say, I'm going to probably get in a nice like bubble bath and just soak it all away, which I haven't taken a bath since I was a kid. I take showers. So probably not going to be true, but
JMike, folks in the share your thoughts on bubble baths. They're the way to go. Yeah. Not very efficient with water. So if you're in a dry area, you might want to consider, if you have any interest in wearing some merchandise, having some mugs, having some posters, stickers, whatever you might want, we have it. Go to tundy.cc/merchaca for your AXP t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, and even limited edition gear. This month we have I Prayed to Joe Pesci because he looks like a guy that can get things done, George Carlin. And we want to send a big thank you to the crew, the people who actually make this show happen, not just JMike and Johnny P. Look at those faces. Look at those people. They're doing stuff. They're making it happen. Thank you so much for what you do. This show wouldn't exist. It would just be me and Mike on a Zoom call. We've got a lot of good callers today. I want to talk to Ronan out of Saudi Arabia. He's a Muslim, but he's at a crossroads and he has some questions. Ronan, were you born a Muslim?
Yes, correct. Like most religious people, you are born into it, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Give us your question. Now, I'm not any kind of a expert in Muslim theology or stuff, but a lot of the same arguments would apply to Allah as they would to the Christian Jewish God. JMike, I don't know what JMike's familiarity is with that stuff. What is yours?
Not nearly as much as Christianity, but
yeah, but a lot of the stuff still applies. So what's one of your questions?
Philosophical arguments, everybody will
Yeah.
just take one and attach it to whatever God that they
That's
want.
right.
So.
Yeah, the Christian philosophers owe a great debt to the Muslim philosophers who helped the Christians get even further into the weeds on bad thinking. But go ahead. What do you got? What's the question?
Yes, the question I have are, you don't have to necessarily be a Muslim to answer them, so it's okay. I was born, just a quick summary, I was born a Muslim, and I went to like a madrasa. Like madrasa is a place where they teach you Quran at a young age.
Yeah.
I actually also memorized parts of the Quran, like 4 chapters, which is a lot, like I think 150 pages maybe, but I actually forgot them now, all of them, so it doesn't matter. But
other stuff in the head, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yes. So anyway, as I grow older, I started, reading. I started reading about philosophy and reason and argumentative. What do you call it? Like making arguments.
Sure.
Yeah, arguments and proofs, and I started applying them in my life, and then I started applying them in my religion, and I noticed some stuff, and I don't know, man. I feel like my bullshit detector is ticking.
Yeah. Ronan, give us some specifics.
Yes,
We're with you. A lot of us have been down this path. So let's get down to brass tacks, as we say.
Yeah.
Okay, I will. Okay. First of all, why did God make this way of communication through prophets?
Yeah.
It seems like very unreliable.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very obvious.
Yes. It's almost like those aren't messages from a deity. It's almost like you could suggest that it's just somebody who wanted to claim that they were messages from a deity so they could take other people's cash and they could exert more political social power. It's almost like that's the case, right?
Yeah. I think it's like, okay, but for example, let's say and the Christian prophet, Jesus, he did not, I think, I'm not sure, maybe you are better at this subject, but Jesus, maybe he didn't want power. But what did he want? Why did he claim, why did he want, he claimed to be, he didn't claim, he claimed to be son of God, I forgot.
Okay. Well, I don't want to put words into maybe a fictional person's mouth, but he did have some followers, right? He did have not only 12 or 13 really close followers, wink, wink, but crowds of people would listen to him, right?
Yeah.
So some people are attracted.
Well, Matthew, they changed
that.
that. Like, Matthew adds a lot of crowds, but
Sure.
Don't worry about it in the other ones.
Yeah, but that's speculating as to what motivated a person. What motivated David Koresh? What motivated, Benny? What's his name? These televangelists. What motivates those people? What motivated the Buddha? What motivated Muhammad? Any number of motivations. But just because they had earthly motivations, to put it that way, doesn't mean that their message isn't true. We have to evaluate that on a different level, right?
Ronan?
Well, JMike, what are your thoughts on that?
I wanted to get to like a very specific hang up because I don't know though, because I obviously was never Muslim or Christian, but I had my own beliefs that I came out of, and I don't remember the kind of crossroads. I know I had it where it was like, what the fuck am I believing? It was like, just hit me like, why do I believe in this shit? But I want to know what that is, because not convinced it's just the methodology of like how the message was revealed. Presumably that you can tug on that string and it's a big ball of yarn. So I'm kind of curious on what's like cumulative case or like the biggest thing that stands out to Ronan.
Sure. Well, just to speak about that, I've had that thought as well, and we've talked about this on the show in the past. I don't know exactly what would be a surefire way to communicate from a deity to all of humanity. Probably having an imaginary friend that floated in front of everyone that you couldn't touch, but was always communicating messages to you, like a hologram, right? Like Harry Seldon from the Foundation series, or Jor-El from Superman 1 and 2, right? Be able to communicate and interact with, and everybody saw this hologram and everyone was able to ask questions and something like that. A truly shared hallucination that or not even a hallucination, spiritual, ghostly companion that everyone could access. That would be a good way to do it. Like, God, what should I do about Betty? Should I marry Betty? Well, what do you say in your heart, my child? I don't know. I'm also in love with Tony. Well, my child, whatever. Like, you could talk to this person. You could ask questions. That would be something. What else? It wouldn't even have to interfere with a person's free will. But the fact is, we don't have that. What we have is a game of telephone. That's what we have.
We don't even get a whole
I
got this revelation from the angel Gabriel, and here's a whole section on how I know.
Mm-hmm.
Here's like how I know I wasn't deceived, and this was really the message from Gabriel. Here's like this. I'm just going to knock any of this kind of skepticism out of the way. There's none of that. Like, if I had gotten a revelation from somebody, a big portion of my holy book is going to be trying really hard to lay out a case on why I am not mistaken.
Yeah.
And why everybody should agree that I'm not mistaken, because I'm going to realize, look, they're divorced from this. People in the future are going to be divorced from this. Yeah. There's this really strong inductive evidence that everybody that claims this is wrong. And so now you have 8 billion people against the one time that it's really happening,
Yeah.
I would lay out a giant thing on it, but you don't get that. There's no hadiths that go over that, right?
It's crap. It's crap, JMike. It's we're back. Great. It's the worst way to communicate. So what are some other examples that you've got? I think you're back with us, Ronan.
Other example is like in the Quran, they mentioned like everything comes from water or something like that. Like the water is
cool.
Yes. Then I start, through philosophy, you read a lot of things, and I read like Thales said the same thing. Thales, a pre-Socratic philosopher.
Oh yeah.
Said everything comes. Yeah, he said the same thing, but he didn't claim to be a prophet.
No. Although, did he not? Isn't the apocryphal story about Thales is that he invested in some sort of agricultural equipment based upon his meteorological studies? It's and that he made a fortune. So he was kind of a prophet, according to the myth.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
I don't know if it's real.
Profit where it counts.
Profit where it counts, baby. Ronan, what else you got? Because I'm going to say one more thing after you give us your next example.
Just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Does this mean we're like 90% planet Earth are living in mass illusion? Isn't that scary?
No, I don't think it
Why?
is because I think it's just bad reasoning. Politically, I think that it's just, I don't think we're all in a mass delusion. I don't think that we're brainwashed. I think that we're just not crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the method by which we accept new facts and make conclusions. That's all it is. That you find that we had the caller earlier today who had all these reasons why historical analysis proves that God exists. He was kind of a big picture guy, didn't really have any specifics. People are busy. They get up, they have chores, they have responsibilities to others and themselves, and they kind of just skip over all the little points, and they're just kind of following suit with whatever they were raised with a lot of times. And I do it too. I'm not any different. And so all it really is some bad I don't know, brain viruses got into human thought. They were useful on some level to give us cultural cohesion, and we just stick with it because it's convenient to do so. We can keep going with the same cultural traditions. I don't think that we're demented or deluded or hallucinating. I think we're just kind of intellectually lazy, and that goes for atheists too. That's where I think we're at, Ronan. Nothing more.
Yeah, I think Johnny hits it on the head with the methodology because of or at least with not having the tools or the tool set. In a lot of cases, people just don't have the tool set, and that's kind of the purpose of this show. And one of its many ways is that you're going to have, hopefully, this reaches people who it just clicks for them, or eventually clicks for them that I haven't actually applied any tool set or even thought about this. And what lingers, I think, or the thing that I think a lot of people get stuck on is I think we all get kind of uncomfortable not knowing the answer, especially when if it's something in your life that's really important to you. And I think when you have that crossroads like you're at, that's the time where you need to start putting stock into a methodology, right? Something that can guide your reasoning and help you out, that you can go back and check. And it's like, okay, well, I care about, sound arguments, or I care about predictive expectation or predictive success in my theory. I care about taking the thing in my head, the imagination of this idea, and applying a method or a tool set that shows that it reflects reality in a way that we all share and understand that, hey, it's not just this idea of an electron I have. I can demonstrate this shit to you. I can make predictive success with this shit. And I think from there, that uncomfortability starts to slowly, you start to become more, I guess, epistemically more humble, or more humble about what you know, because you can start to see the limitations of it. And to me, it starts to be, at least for me, it wasn't a bad thing to realize I'm not going to know all the answers in that case, but it was enough for me to go, look, I don't have justification to accept this proposition to be true. And so I shouldn't affirm it. I shouldn't say that this proposition or this belief or whatever is true, absent applying this method that's going to help guide me down the line. And I hope, if that's where you're at in the crossroads, that the next kind of method or step you want to take is really looking into, I think X is true. Like, how can I falsify that? How can I verify that? Right. And that to me is, you're in the right path from there. I don't think that that'll stray you away.
Yeah. Ronan, you honestly sound like you're a non-believer. I'm not going to put thoughts into your head, but you don't sound like a very strong believer. It sounds like you've identified some of the weak points on a scale of 1 to 10. With
kind.
Where are you? How strong is your faith in Allah? 1 to 10.
I can't answer. Let me think. Maybe I'll call you later.
That's fine.
Perfectly fine. I mean, here's another thing. Here's another thing that I don't think, Ronan, you're going to hear from the side you're coming from. Maybe you will. I'm skeptical that you will. But you're going to hear it from me and Johnny. Don't listen to what we say. Don't just watch the show and be like, oh, Johnny and JMike are right. They sound smart, or they sound stupid. Well, maybe they sound stupid, but that one thing they said, I agree, because it sounded cool or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't take our word for it. In fact, don't believe me.
Yeah.
Everything I said about the apocalyptic view with the caller last with Jesus, don't believe what I said. Just assume I made all of that shit up, but then go check and go look. And that's why I'm confident saying, don't believe me. If I know the next steps that you're going to do is verify it or try to falsify it, very confident. Extremely confident. And so I think that that's something you're not going to have pushed to you or sold in the snake oil, right? It's not part of the snake oil for them to mention that. In fact, they bake in the kind of opposite of that, hey, it's not the world's going to think you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's them. It's not you. It's them. And
hey, Ronan, just piggybacking on what JMike said about snake oil. I don't know if you know what snake oil salesmen are. I don't want to assume you do or don't. Do you know what a snake? Do you know what snake oil is? No. It's good illustration of the whole point.
I do.
You do?
Sweet, awesome.
But I grew up in Israel, but I'm very familiar with your culture.
Oh, okay. Well, what does a snake oil salesman do? A snake oil salesman wants you to commit to a decision as quickly as you can, give you those $5 so you can buy the oil it's a cure-all for all your problems.
Yeah.
But once you actually look at it, it doesn't do jack squat, and all you're out is $5. Religion's a bit more insidious, right? It promises you the moon and stars and the cure for all of existence, and all it demands of you is dedication for your entire life. And once the life's over, we non-believers don't believe you got anything else. So you're on the right course. Keep on asking questions. You've identified probably the crummiest parts of a theistic worldview, like the bad reasons. But start going after the best reasons to believe in Allah.
Exactly.
Right? And you're going to find, at least I've found, there's nothing much better than that. Like, it's all just a house of cards, at least as far as I've seen. Now, there's probably some callers who would disagree with us. But, Ronan, you get out of here, okay? Go keep on your journey. You call back, okay? Please, call back with more questions. We want to hear about it. All right?
Yeah, Ronan, I would love to hear an update from you. I felt like this conversation was like just three people talking in a room, not even realizing that it was a whole live show. It felt very genuine, honest conversation. And so I would really like to be updated on where you head, whether you still hold the beliefs or not. I mean, I'm just interested in where you go from here.
And be safe while you do so. I don't want to make any assumptions about Saudi Arabia, but it's not known throughout the world as being a place where a discussion of the untruths, the truthlessness or the unreliability of Islam is tolerated and openly discussed. It's not known for that, at least, and maybe it is in your community. But whatever you do it in safety. Do it with people you trust, and call back. We want to hear from you. Okay, we really enjoyed that call. Hey, you know what? We also really enjoy, folks, when people come to see us. If you happen to be in the Austin area on April 30th, 2023, we will be broadcasting live from the Free Thought Library. You can join us for Talk Heathen, hosted by Objectively Dan and special guest Blind Limey. Blind Limey showed up on audition day a couple months ago, and he did a great job, and now he's going to be on the show. Later, you're going to see the Atheist Experience, hosted by Jim Barrows and Christy Powell. Doors open at noon. Come on down. Plenty of parking in the neighborhood, and we hope to see you there.
Where does Jim park his yacht when he shows up?
I don't think he has that anymore.
Look.
Does he? I thought he got
you're not familiar with Jim Barrows and his extravagant celebrity parties on his yacht.
Oh yeah. I was never invited to one.
I was gonna say. I mean, I was gonna ask you because I was like, you don't seem to know about them, and I've heard about them through other people. He denies them, but whatever. Audience, just try. If anyone in the live chat or watches the show gets on one of those yacht parties, let me know how they are. Like, what do they like? What do they serve? Like, what's going on? Because Jim just hangs out with the coolest celebrities, and
he does champagne wishes and caviar dreams on Jim's yacht. I thought I was part of the atheist inner circle, and it turns out if I'm not on that yacht, on Jim's yacht, then I'm not. Yacht or not, you decide. All right, I'm going to talk now to Andrew, and JMike is too. Andrew is coming out of South Carolina, and as a believer, it has always bothered Andrew that Christians say that they must believe or go to hell. Andrew also doesn't understand atheism and wants to understand more. Would you like to know more? Well, you've called the right place. Andrew, you are on Atheist Experience with JMike and Johnny P. Tell us why that bothered you.
JMike and Johnny P.
Hey.
Well, because there's a scripture. Can you guys hear me all right? Because it's a little windy. I apologize.
Loud and clear.
Okay. There's a scripture where Jesus says to the Pharisees or the scribes, they ask him, why do you eat with sinners? And he said, those who are well are in no need of a physician. I have come for the sick. So for a Christian, a born-again Christian who's been saved from their former life, to start running around telling people that are okay, that you're going to go to hell if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, does not align with that statement that he made. So I've watched, I would say, about a month of shorts from you guys, and I see a lot of
watching our shorts. Got it.
Between, yes. I've seen a lot of confrontation between, and I'm sure the shorts are, the most.
My shorts look better than Johnny's.
But it's like
they're clips to take the joke out of it. The clips are like sort of the highlight of, I would say, conflict, or at least a turning point. But there's a lot more conversation than just the shorts going on. So.
Yes, and I've watched a little bit of that, but the shorts keep popping up into my feed. And basically what I see is you guys have a lot of confrontation with, well, from the shorts that I've seen, with people who say that, and you say your religion is morally bankrupt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I vehemently disagree, because a Christian who was, say, very selfish, liar, cheater, stealer, just selfish, and encounters Christ transforms them instantly. If that believer starts behaving poorly, God destroys them.
Really?
And that's
every time.
Yes.
Every time.
Yes. Yes. Hey, yes.
You've never heard. So what would happen if there were to be somebody who believes they accepted Christ, right? And they continued to lie, cheat, steal, abuse, molest, rape, murder. What about those people? What would you say about them?
I didn't go that far.
Well, let's take it as far as lie, cheat, and steal. Let's take it that far.
If they believe that, they're going nowhere near the kingdom. That's for sure. There's no chance. You cannot, it's not just believe in this. That is the biggest lie in Christianity. You can't just say the sinner's prayer, please come into my heart, et cetera, and then just go about your way and keep doing whatever you want to do. That is tolerable. It's the whole.
Well, are there sects of Christianity who believe that merely saying that, merely accepting and believing in Christ is enough, and that
and
deeds...
they're wrong.
Okay, they're wrong. How do you know they're wrong?
Because
I think they're wrong.
The experience.
Too. Okay. What about their experience?
100% wrong, and I bought into the bullshit. What's that?
Well, what about their experience that tells them that they're right and you're wrong? What would you say to that?
They don't have that experience, because they think that all they have to do is accept it and they're going to heaven. So
you both use the same tools.
They haven't gotten to heaven yet.
Yeah, but look, Johnny's asking you, how do you know? Johnny's asking you how you know, and you're not. You're just seemingly like repeating the claim, or just repeating what you already think. But they have the same tools available to them, right? The Bible and the Holy Spirit and all that. So how is it that you actually know? Like, what is the thing that's the asymmetry between them, right?
Yeah, respectfully, how do you know that you're right and they're wrong?
Because God destroyed me.
Okay. What about for those people who would testify that God has spoken to them in the way that they believe and they're right and you're wrong? What would you say to that? What methodology would you use to prove that they're wrong and you're right?
I'm not interested in that. I called because
then you're not interested in truth.
I'm 100% interested in.
No,
truth.
you're not. If you're not interested in a method that gets you there or determines that you're right and the other person's wrong, then you aren't actually interested in that investigation or that type of work, right? And like if I said I'm not interested, it's like saying this is what you're saying. It's like I want to go to the mall or something, and then I'm like, well, you should probably get in the car and drive there. And you're like, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, then you're not going to get to the mall.
Listen. You guys don't believe. I'm saying to you that there are Christians who call up, and that's just what my experience with your channel. It's a very contentious conversation between you and the believer, or not you personally, but the hosts of the show, where it gets into this idea that good people go to hell and bad people go to heaven. And I don't agree with that. I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. I think that, for example, you know, look, when I was a kid, I was gullible and very curious and messed up. And in my mid-20s, I found Christ. Completely transformed my life. But I kept bouncing back into...
That sounds consistent with gullibility to me.
Yeah, it was stupid.
No, I'm saying you're saying you were gullible and then you came to Christ. That's, to me, you've actually just said something to me that's consistent with gullibility, right? Because look, you read a book says a thing and you believe it to be true. I kind of want to stop dancing around the issue and just ask you, why do you think it's true? Like, we're just kind of assuming the case, and I don't like doing that. I want to know why you actually think it's even true in the first place.
Why do I think the Lord is real?
Yeah, why is Jesus God, or why is the Bible true?
Okay.
Your interpretation, obviously.
Okay. I had the numerous experiences, which I can't give to you, that I have.
We can't really get in. We can't really.
You gotta, or we can't really.
Let me see if I can speak your language. Let me see if I can speak your language. Have you seen the movie Limitless?
Yeah, I have.
With Bradley Cooper.
It's a good run.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I did.
Remember?
I saw it.
Okay, so Bradley Cooper in that movie is totally depressed. His life sucks. His girlfriend leaves him.
Yeah.
But then he gets this pill. He pops the pill. He walks up the stairs. The next thing you know, I once was blind and now I see. That is not a pill. That's not a pill. That's a real thing. And that was the whole point of that movie, that people are walking around hidden in plain sight with higher levels of awareness. Jesus happened to have the highest level of awareness. Now, I'm trying to speak your language. I have an idea that you guys are on a higher level of awareness, and everyone comes into this world.
It's not about me. Look, you keep talking about me and Johnny, but what we're asking you is, like, I have nothing to do with why you believe or why you think it's rational to believe. If you said you just had experiences and we can't, I mean, sure, there's one thing to say I can't know what your experiences were, but if that's all you got and we can't actually go through that, then, I mean, that's fine. But to prove it to yourself, I had an experience and I think it's true, but did you investigate whether or not you could be wrong? Did you try to falsify that experience or provide alternate hypotheses that could confirm the same data? Right. I'm not really seeing that. It's just people glance over this, and it's the most important.
So things lead to an experience.
Yeah, but so I get that. It was. Let me ask it this way: was it an emotional or traumatic type of experience for you?
Not at all.
No. I mean, like, prior to you being a Christian, was it like a really hard time? There was something that was like really horribly going wrong.
No, yeah, I was insecure, just totally.
Great. And do you think that appeals to your emotions can influence in a negative way what you end up believing? You think that can have an impact on what you're willing to accept and not accept? Because look, if you're hurt, Andrew, and someone's coming there with the Christ that's died for your sins, right? That sounds really good to someone's ears who is going through that, hasn't looked into what religion's been offering and tried to like apply some critical thinking and go, I don't think it's true. You're in the exact moment of that opportune time to be persuaded because you're emotionally heightened.
And JMike,
but that's whoa, wait. I got to respond to that.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Do it.
Initial. And you're right. That's the initial. I'm sitting in a church. Some dude invites me to a church. I went to church when I was a kid. It was the most boring thing I could possibly imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't wait to stop. So once my parents said, you don't have to go anymore, I was out. And the next thing you know, I'm having sex, I'm doing drugs, and I'm doing whatever I want to do. 26 years old, one of my students invites me to a different church. His son invites me to a different church. I say, okay, whatever. I didn't want to go. I just said, sure. But the reason I said sure, sort of irrelevant. So I sit in this church, and it's totally different. Never been in a church like this before. It's not traditional, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sitting in the room. The pastor gets up, and he just starts talking, and he's not reading anything. He's not looking at anything. I've never seen anything like this before. And about a half an hour in, There's like 400 people in the room. I'm sitting right in the middle.
Yeah.
It was like the whole room, like everyone just disappeared, and he was talking directly to me about my entire life.
Charismatic preacher. Charismatic preacher.
How does this guy know my life? And that was just the beginning. That didn't get me hooked, but that was just the beginning. And I went off and I tried to raise my vibration in other ways, and then I would ultimately fall. And that's what.
You don't think that there's commonality that a pastor or preacher can pick up on having a congregation, talking to hundreds, thousands of people, getting to understand, hearing the same story, and then being able to manipulate and play that against people, right? I mean, to me, it seems very obvious that's another hypothesis that you need to consider.
I never felt before.
Okay, well, that's fine, but look, if
are you trying to convince me? Are you trying to convince me that God's not real?
No, I'm trying to convince you that you haven't applied. You likely probably haven't applied really good standards of evidence, but we haven't gotten that there.
That's all.
That far.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like show you alternatives.
Why would okay?
Look, if you went to a mosque and someone took you to a mosque, would you believe in Allah? If you just happened to go to this mosque and wow, this imam was really saying a lot of stuff and he knew my life, is that enough for you to just all of a sudden jump onto Islam?
I've never studied Islam.
But it would be bad reasons to accept Islam, right? If that's take out Christianity, put a mosque in, and tell me if that's good reason to believe in Islam. Because I think you probably agree with me, it's not.
Well, from the statement that you just said, if you go to a mosque and somebody says Allah, are you going to believe it? I sit in a Christian church and I say, that's his opinion and that's true. So I'm sitting there deciphering between what's true and what's his opinion. And I just throw out the opinion. And that's basically why I don't go to church anymore, because it's just a bunch of opinions sprinkled with a little bit of truth. Somebody else's experience. I'm not going to draw off your experience. What's that?
Andrew, what tool do you use? I think that's what we're getting here. Clearly you encountered a charismatic preacher in some way, okay? But that's fine. We're all subject to that. Every single one of us is subject to charisma. But what I want to know, what JMike wants to know is what is that method you use to separate the opinion from the truth? Because that seems to be what keeps you where you're at. Intuition. Okay. What's your definition of intuition?
It's like an invisible knowing.
An invisible knowing. Okay.
I have an intuition the earth would be flat. I'd be wrong.
Let me ask you a question. Can you read people?
As in, can I get a sense of people, whether they're, friendly, unfriendly, trustworthy, untrustworthy, knowledgeable, or unknowledgeable, ignorant, like that kind of reading people?
Can you read body language?
Every human being can to some degree.
No,
criminal psychologists.
Can you walk into a room and immediately know who's in charge? Just look around in the room.
No, I cannot. What I can see is that there are certain non-verbal, physical performances that people do. You can see when someone's gathered around one person listening. That person's probably a little bit more central to the group dynamic, but that's not evidence of God. That's just evidence of that person has something to say and the others are listening to it. But go on. Yes and no. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
You asked me what intuition is. You didn't ask me what God was.
Okay. All right. Intuition. So
intuition. You asked me intuition. My intuition tells me.
Intuitions aren't justifiers, right?
Your intuition tells you that God exists. I get it. What if your intuition told you that the earth was flat? Would you believe it?
Absolutely not.
What if your intuition told you that Filipino people are less good than Saudi Arabian people, generally speaking? Would you believe that?
My intuition wouldn't tell me that.
How do you know?
We're talking about specific.
Oh, so you just have a truth. So your intuition is just the infallible truth detector.
You got a truth detector inside of you. Is that what you're telling us, Andrew? And you're always right because your intuition is never wrong.
I'm not always right.
Okay, so sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. So what are some examples of when it's wrong? You still believe your intuition, even though sometimes your intuition is wrong. Hypothetically speaking, is it possible that your intuition could be really wrong about something? Like maybe you thought that a particular type of car was a reliable car, a good, reliable car, and it was a good deal. And your intuition's wrong about it.
No, actually, my intuition is right because I'm looking to buy a car right now, and there's a car online that I said, I want that car, I want that car. I called them up, didn't have a good feeling on the phone. Called them up again, didn't have a good feeling on the phone. Okay. Looked back at the website, saw that it had 7 different owners in 10 years, and I said, oh, that's why my intuition.
Oh, so you relied upon some external evidence other than an internal state of intuition.
But whoa. What we're saying is my intuition was correct.
No, Andrew, you said that you're saying intuitions were justifiers, and you said that your intuitions couldn't be wrong, or that they gained you knowledge, and that they're truth detectors.
I didn't say they couldn't be wrong.
We'll have to check the tape on that. You said something very akin to that. You know that your intuition is how you know it to be true, and if that's the case, right? Presumably, if it's justified, I'm going to challenge that. Intuitions aren't justifiers, because guess what? I have an intuition that I have an intuition that your entire life is a lie. Everything you've ever done is a lie. Everything. This is my intuition. Does that's like, oh, all of a sudden I've justified that proposition? No, of course I haven't, right?
No, but his intuition tells him
that. Is that your intuition?
Yeah, my intuition is that everything you've ever said is wrong.
Yeah.
Including this. Wow. Except for the thing about intuitions.
Except for the thing about intuition.
So yeah, because I'm using intuitions as a justifier right now.
Andrew, it's an intellectual exercise.
Trying to show you why this is a bad thing to go with, because look, your intuition goes just as far as justifying something as the next person, because if their intuition disagrees with that, then you have to introduce something new, like Johnny said, to settle the dispute. If you care about settling the dispute, if you care about buying into that, then great, have a fun time just saying no to each other about your intuitions, or settle the no dispute by introducing evidence or sound and valid arguments, right? And I just don't see why we would just sit there and yell no at each other and stick our fingers in our ear. My intuition's better.
Yeah, Andrew, we don't rely on intuition for the important things of life. If somebody's been accused of a crime, we don't really rely upon intuition, because what would that be? What would that even mean? That we look at the person and we get a sense of it. We look at them in the courtroom. We see them sitting in the table at the defendant's table, and we have like 12 people sitting in the jury box, and they're just like, my intuition tells me that he's guilty. My intuition tells me that he's not guilty. Oh, well, there's more of us than there are them, so you should just defer to our intuition. That's not how it works. We take evidence. We cross-examine witnesses. We examine witnesses. We put on test, physical and documentary evidence. We look at videotapes when we have it. We look at DNA evidence whenever we have that. And we try to determine the veracity of testimony, the reliability of it. And we don't get it right all the time, because our intuition, in some respect, is a collection of biases that we carry around with us at all times. And sometimes they happen to be right, and sometimes they're wrong. And so
it's demonstrable. It's demonstrable. We can literally show that the results based on our intuition don't match up 1-to-1. They actually have the opposite answer. And so therefore that methodology fails, right? Because it should have a success rate, not a failure rate.
How do you know that your intuition is based on your bias?
How do I know that intuition is based on our bias? I'm saying it's a collection of biases that we have. Until we take in new information, it's like shooting from the hip, man. Like our intuition is shooting from the hip, taking like surface level information without digging deeper and making an opinion based upon what is readily available to us at the moment of making the decision. An intelligent person doesn't merely shoot from the hip when making important decisions in life. A person who wants to actually get the answer right, they'll be like, well, I'm gonna look up this car. I'm going to see how many owners there were. I'm going to go on like Kelley Blue Book and see if it has any resale value. I'm going to go on various websites to try to find out if the Ford Focus or whatever the car was, I don't know what it was, a cool car, I'm sure it was the best car, cool color too, is a car that is easy to repair, cheap parts, reliable, all the various things that you do. You look at reviews, you try to get other data, and then you make a decision. Now, in those cases where it's supported by the evidence, and you had an intuition that it was the right car, you'll count that as a home run, right? Like, oh, I was right. My intuition was right. In those cases where you look up something, and I've done this too, when I'm like Consumer Reports or whatever, I want to get a piece of tech. I want to get a different kind of a car. I really want this thing because it's cool. My intuition tells me it's great, but I don't trust my intuition. So I go research it. Oh, wait, it's a pain in the ass. I don't want that thing. My intuition was dead wrong. An honest person, a person who's aware of their flaws, and I think JMike and I are very much aware of our own flaws, will be like, well, I ain't going to trust my intuition because sometimes I'm a dumbass. So I'm going to do research, and I'm going to critically evaluate that first impression. You do it too, Andrew. You're just kind of, I think you're just hunkering down because you want to defend this position, because this position justifies your belief in the existence of a supernatural deity. And I think...
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it
okay,
doesn't.
So what is your justification for believing in a supernatural deity? Then give us your best evidence.
Yeah, so then we just wasted all that time.
We just wasted it. Yeah, give us your best evidence. If it's not intuition, what is
Can
it?
you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No. You guys asked me a question about intuition 10 minutes ago. I don't know how we got on this topic.
I asked you about justification, I believe, and you talked about intuition.
So give us your justification. Forget about all that. What's your justification for belief in the existence of God?
Justification for what?
Your belief in the existence of God.
Well, I mean, there's a scripture verse that says the Lord has been here all along, and I didn't know it. And in 2009, I felt something inside of me that was very heavy, and I didn't want to go down that road. But it kept feeling heavy, and finally I let it go. So at that point, I said to myself, actually, I prayed, and I said it simply. I said, you just took what I care about the most. You might as well take the rest of me. And I sat down, and I was sitting on a couch in North Palm Beach, Florida, watching 4 Christmases with Vince Vaughn. And he said something funny. And I was so depressed at that moment. I was totally depressed. And I just chuckled. And then I felt my energy just shift, like kind of quick. And then it started changing and changing and changing. And I walked outside, and the normal chatter, I don't know if you guys have chatter in your mind, but somebody on a lower level of vibration tends to have chatter in their mind. And the chatter in my mind it was like, I can only describe it like a book. So I walk outside, it was like a 1-floor house. I'm outside, it's January, North Palm Beach, perfect, beautiful night. And I start hearing this voice going like this. And then all of a sudden, silence. And I was outside, and then it started to go again, and then silence. And then it was a sentence. Then it was a phrase. Then it was one word, and it was perfect silence. And the next thing you know, the Lord has been here all along, and I didn't know it. It was like space is not space. I was experiencing that. Even though the air looks like there's nothing there, there's so much there. And the vibrations, the waves, I could feel them from the outside passing through me like I wasn't even there. So I was completely at one with whatever this universe is. And I looked at the tree and I said, that's me. And I looked at the sky and I said, that's me. And I looked at everything and I said, I'm everything. And I could feel...
This sounds like the trips I've had on LSD. And so, I mean, like, I don't know that was convincing. Yeah, that wasn't convincing. Yeah, not convincing for me, right? But this is the problem, right? So you have to separate.
To God, you took a pill.
No, look, yeah, I get it. You had an experience, but the point is we have to separate what you're convinced of and the experiences you have. So please track through me with what I'm about to say, right? We understand that you have an experience or that you're convinced of X, right? Experience of X, you're convinced of X. But you need to separate that, right? The experience with that, with it actually be like versus it being justified. We get that you're convinced of this thing, but there's a separate question on how can I know that to be true? Appealing to the experience you had seems to be like circular to me, because how do I know that this experience is what it was? Well, felt like this is what the experience I had and what it was. We have like a pretty rigorous methodology in science. We have a pretty good understanding on how the brain works and these types of experiences. These aren't unique to people. People have these all the time. And they generally, I would say generally, be my own view is that they're all explained naturally. But we don't have any reason to suggest that they're explained in any other way. And if it's the case that you hold some belief to be true and you want to justify it, it doesn't sound like you're going through like the standards of like a really rigorous standards that we have in science, or a philosophical method of like deduction. It just sounds like you're really content with the way that you feel. And that's not, to me, it's like separating the whole what I feel versus being justified in what I feel.
Yeah. Mike, can I cut through the crap on this one?
You guys are scientists,
you were feeling low and you prayed. That tells me before you had your belief, quote unquote, you believed. When I'm feeling low, I don't pray because I don't already believe. All right. You don't pray when you don't already think that prayer is going to work.
I'm trying to convince you.
I don't think you're trying to convince us. I think you're trying to
yeah.
Okay,
you're trying to express yourself.
Because you're trying to tell me that you should be more scientific about what's going on in your life.
Well, no, you can be more philosophical. You could have any method you can have.
Well, okay.
I was hoping you were calling us to tell us why we should believe, but I'm not hearing anything. And I know that you had an experience. I think JMike and I. Hold on a second. I think JMike and I will agree that you're trying to share your experience to sort of support why you believe in the existence of God, and you had vibrations going on, and Vince Vaughn played a role in it, and you were feeling low and you felt great afterwards, and that's cool. We're with you that you had the experience, but we're not convinced that there's something behind all of that. That's it. And so we want you to give us. Go ahead. Sorry.
What did I say? I had to let something go. I was holding on to something. So let's say, like, you're a man. You know that if a woman walks out, you don't take her. I didn't know that then.
Okay, so you were going through some difficult times. I'm not with you, man.
I feel like he didn't even hear anything that you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that's kind of frustrating for me. But look, Johnny made a very good point. I think honestly, it's the only point in this call that we should focus on is the point Johnny just made. Right? I wish I would have thought of this. I wish I would have detected this as you said it. And now it seems so obvious to me. You prayed before, right? You didn't like pray to Allah, right? You didn't make any type of like sacrificial like
crystals
rituals,
weren't involved,
or you didn't clutch crystals, right? You didn't do that. Get in tune with your chakras, get in touch with Vishnu. You had a very specific concept in mind with prayer, right? You were praying to an Abrahamic God, being Yahweh, being probably who's also identical with Jesus somehow and doesn't violate identity. But anyway, we'll get into that some other time. But if that's the case, right, then you already started with that position. Yeah, it's like extremely not convincing, because you went in getting what you wanted out of it. You searched for what you wanted, whether subconscious. I don't think you did it.
I was not looking for that. I was not looking for that. I had no idea.
What it sounds like, it definitely. I wasn't there, but if you say the words that I prayed and then you came to that, right? Like, why didn't you go down the list? I would understand that if you go, I'm going to try to pray to Allah, I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to try to exhaust all my options.
Sweat lodge.
You started with the Christian God. That's, to me, doesn't seem very coincidence that of the billion types of things I could have prayed to, I got it right on the first one. Right? You don't think you don't detect that in your head as, wow, God, I got such a good brain. I'm just detecting this shit on first try. Like, probabilities out the window. I got it right.
I think my communication skills aren't good enough for you guys. And that's really all it is, because you're not here.
No, I think your standards of evidence aren't good enough for yourself.
I think that if you sit back and maybe instead of hunkering down and trying to defend yourself, why don't you call back? And why don't you, aside from the experience, because again, we said we don't deny that you had this heavy feeling in your heart or in your pit of your stomach. I've had that feeling. I've had moments of indecision. I've been there in that place myself. I've been desperate. I've been sad. I've been confused. And then a light switches off and I make the decision. Now, Vince Vaughn probably wasn't involved. and I'm joking with you on that one, but like there's been stupid things. I hear a song, I play a game, I watch a movie, or I go for a walk, and suddenly the problem that was insoluble becomes solved. And but that doesn't mean that there's an agent outside of time and space that was trying to help me do it. My brain is always working 99 miles an hour. It's always running, potential solutions to my problems. And at some point it did. And so if I were to have such really low standards of evidence, I would say whatever was around me at the time, that was the thing that caused the thing to work itself out. I'm just, best you could say, man, is you don't know what did it, but it happened. Something happened and you got through your problem. But again, maybe you need to work on your presentation, Andrew. I do appreciate you calling. I'm going to let you go, and you should call back again sometime when you have maybe laid it out in a way that we should believe. Try to convince us. Maybe that's not your agenda to convince people why you should believe, but it can help us understand you more if you lay it out in that format. And we're here to have that conversation and to learn more about you and your experience, and maybe poke holes or follow the path a little farther with you. But yeah, just because you had some experience isn't going to be enough for us. JMike, final thought, and then we're going to finish the show.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the thing that you pointed out with the prayer thing was as soon as you said that, it was like very obvious to me. Like, wait a second, first try out of like, and you just do some mathematics on that and show how improbable that would be.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it's annoying to me in the sense that you have some options. I mean, maybe you just look, science can't detect the supernatural or whatever. And presumably you come with some other methodology, but it seems always strange to me that people avoid the kind of rigorous standards that we have, or maybe they don't want to look into whatever literature that's been written on this or any academic literature on it and see if, how do I know, like epistemology or something, for example, like how do I know what I know? And when they avoid this type of way of being able to sift through this, and they just want to tell me like, well, I just have this thing in my head, I'm left there going, I'm glad that there's a thing in your head, but can we show that that's actually reflective of the reality that we share? And like, you could just show me any method you have, and maybe we have to have a whole analysis on whether or not that's reliable, but at least you're giving me something, and not just like, oh, I was sitting at a park and I felt like ways about stuff. Like, this is not convincing to me.
You felt connected to the universe before, right? I have. The moment that sticks with me is like a 10, 15-year-old moment. Like, I was walking around.
Mine was influenced, but that's
mine is almost never influenced. But I was walking in, a butterfly flew past me, and there were like nice breezes and smells and stuff, and I felt in harmony with the universe. But the difference between me and a caller like that is it's like I'm not going to write it off as hormones. I don't care where the feeling comes from. I have the feeling. Right. And my mind follows that flow, man. The vibrations are there, but it's like, that's just a metaphor for, I don't know what. Anyhow.
We need Kelly to come here and get us our crystals and clutch them. And we
love those crystals.
We just get in tune and vibrations. So
yeah, look, have you ever said to yourself, folks at home, I really love the ACA content. I love the videos. I love seeing JMike, but I just want to not see JMike and to hear his voice. We got you covered. We got the 24/7 AXP TV live stream. Tune in at any time of the day to experience a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from over 26 seasons of AXP. You can watch or simply listen to your favorite hosts and discover some hosts you've never heard of. That's at tiny.cc/AXPTV to join in the fun. Again, share your experience. Reminder, complete the sentence. It was a real jerk move when God created blank. Go ahead and enter that. Yes. What was that? Urethra fish?
As a buddy of mine that I on the TikToks had mentioned this. And so when I got the question for the week, I had to shout out my buddy Muffin Pup. And and give his example. So
fan of the show, Muffin
Yep.
Puff. We love you. But enter your comment in the comments below, not in the live chat, in the comments below. And next week we will read the top 3 answers. Look, I was not convinced. I thought maybe we had some good callers. I won't say this, but we had some good callers, but nothing that has made me question my skepticism in the existence of supernatural things.
Wait, we're not going to be putting money into the pot like you said at the beginning? Like, I thought we were supposed to go to the churches and let them know that.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not happening.
Sorry, churches, you're going to have to get it from someone else.
Wow.
But there was good conversations, and I appreciated it. But when any of these callers come back, anyone out there in the audience, bring your A game, because we're not easily convinced by that kind of stuff. But we are convincible. So thank you, everyone in the audience, for being here today. You can visit our website at atheist-community.org for the latest on what's been happening, and feel free to contact us at atheist-community.org. JMike, let's do this again soon.
Let's do it. And thank you, everybody, and thank you, crew, and everybody who puts it together and makes this possible.
Take care, all. Have a good week. Bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your life.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.